Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, October 16th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America. Downtown Brooklyn, USA.
Kind of sweet.
We're broadcasting just to the heartland of America. The rest of you, stop listening.
What's up, Kowalski? Everybody else, tune out.
On the program today, in the wake of the 4th Democratic debate taking place somewhere in Ohio, AOC, Ilhan, and Tlaib endorse Bernie Sanders. Meanwhile, the impeachment inquiry moves forward. Former State Department official McKinley in a closed-door deposition today and yesterday's testimony puts Mick Mulvaney in the center of the corrupt White House plan for Ukraine. Meanwhile, Rudy proves the old adage, he who acts as his own attorney has a fool for a client. New ProPublica investigation shows why Donald Trump has been hiding his taxes. It's not because he's not a billionaire. It's because he's perpetrating fraud.
Yeah, there's other things to do with the money, like perpetrate fraud.
Meanwhile, Erdogan cucks Pence and Pompeo. Ilhan Omar introduced a bill to provide universal free school lunch. The new report, investor-owned hospitals are dumping tons of cash into the fight against Medicare for All. Meanwhile, a new report of the Global Hunger Index shows that climate change is driving alarming levels of hunger around the world. And congratulations, labor, you're being taxed now at a higher level than capital for the first time in ever. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. We are all exhausted in studio last night till late in the evening. Although I'm sure Jamie was out even later. But
I was in bed.
Staying awake. So we're all tired, right?
Definitely.
Okay, good. We're all exhausted, and but we are here today to give you a bit of a recap on the debate last night and a bit of a update on where we are with impeachment. And these two stories, moving in more or less in parallel. There was the first question of the evening was for every person on stage as to whether the president needs to be impeached. They largely all agreed, as far as I could tell, except for, Tulsi Gabbard sort of gave a slightly convoluted answer, I have to be honest. She both said that it was highly partisan, but that she supports it, but that it's right, but it's a little bit wrong. And so she came out strong with a tremendous amount of ambivalence on that. Everyone else on stage, though, was quite supportive of impeachment. And how could you not be at this point? I mean, both politically and ethically, and I mean, it's quite obvious. You can be suspicious of the CIA, but at this point now, the Intel Committee has heard from multiple members of the State Department, diplomats, career diplomats, who have defied Mike Pompeo and gone in and testified. Some who have resigned, like the guy today, resigned and is in there testifying today. And certainly what came out yesterday, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but today they'll hear from Michael McKinley. He was a former senior advisor to Mike Pompeo, but not one that came in with Pompeo. He was already there, a career State Department official. Yesterday, George Kent, who was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, basically told the lawmakers that all the Ukraine experts were shoved aside in dealing with Ukraine policy by Mick Mulvaney and replaced with Gordon Sunderland, who is a hotelier and was the ambassador to the EU.
I would like to see him in a Wes Anderson movie now that you say that.
Exactly. And, of course, Rudy Giuliani.
A simple country lawyer with simple country interests.
Kurt Volker, who was an unpaid emissary with his own sort of strange... and, of course, there was one other guy who was in charge of this. I shouldn't necessarily include Rudy in this. Rudy was sort of like the fourth wheel. The third wheel was, of course, Rick Perry, who was the energy secretary because they had sort of a side deal going on where they wanted to get members of their buddies on their on a corporate board in Ukraine. And they apparently called themselves the Three Amigos. And, of course, you put the Three Amigos in charge of the relationship with Ukraine when you don't want career people who would say, like, hey, wait a second, what are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to do with other countries. You don't want them there.
They're like the little rascals.
They sort of are. It's absolutely true. And Spanky really went too far this time. But at this point, I mean, there's simply no denying what's going on. The question is that I think the Democrats are facing at this point is, do they go ahead and take a vote on this? And I still haven't had my question answered as to whether they can do just a rolling impeachment hearings. Like, we're going to vote on impeachment for this one, and then in 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to vote on impeachment for the next one. Obviously, they're being stonewalled. Giuliani refusing to provide documents. Pompeo refusing to provide documents. Pence refusing to provide documents. Failure to comply with the subpoena. And the question becomes, do you waste time trying to compel their testimony, go into the courts, et cetera, when you already have enough information to impeach the president? Because they clearly do. I mean, frankly, they clearly did before any of this happened.
I have a highly impeachable personality.
It's
sort of prima facie I should be impeached.
Exactly. And so that is really the question that the Democrats are trying to figure out right now. And I have to admit, I don't think it's a slam dunk.
I just want to speak this into existence because people love to make Photoshops. The Grand Kiev Hotel.
There you go.
Oh, yes. I love it.
Think about it.
The Grand Kiev. Yeah. Grand Budapest. Wes Anderson theme. I'm digging
Oh,
it.
I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah. I mean, something's going on there.
It's going to be so whimsical.
Dear
Very
diary.
rich in colors. All right,
no,
and so-
Mr. President, you cannot.
Meanwhile, we have another burgeoning disaster in northern Syria, which is not to say that what's been taking place in Syria for the past 9 years, hasn't been a disaster. But the real challenge with Syria in terms of, or I should say, the only challenge to a large extent that I think the United States could have played throughout this has been to make sure that it doesn't turn into a wider conflict. And that would have involved providing a lot more resources for refugees escaping Syria. And in this instance, leaving the 100 troops that were there and basically telling Turkey, like, hey, no, you cannot go in. Not happening.
And they should have supported an earlier diplomatic process with Assad and the Kurds.
Instead of holding out.
Instead of holding out on this regime change nonsense, which has been over for years, practically speaking. And so there's a lot of crocodile tears there as well.
But now we are looking at a situation where we could be on the brink of some form of ethnic cleansing and genocide. I guess to a certain extent, it depends on how much Assad feels that they want to fight Turkey at this point. Here's Donald Trump basically assuring everybody that he's got his guys on it and they're going to take care of it. And he's going to send some tough words to Turkey because I apparently didn't do that on the phone with Erdogan. And but look at all the tough guys behind me.
God, he's such a bitch.
Yeah, here he is. Like he's going to.
That's what Erdogan said.
It's honestly like, oh, we're getting a hockey team coming here.
Straight out of Central Casting.
All right, beautiful. Put them behind me. We're tough guys. We're like the Jets, but not like the football team, like the Jets and the Sharks, and not the hockey Sharks.
You know, I could have played
just
pro
the
hockey.
Jets. We're the Jets and the Sharks. We're going to tell Erdogan what's what.
Yeah, they're going to do a menacing
This
dance.
is yesterday.
Mike is getting ready to make a big trip. He'll be leaving tomorrow. We have a delegation leaving today, and Mike is heading it up with Secretary Pompeo. They'll be leaving tomorrow. And we're having very strong talks with a lot of people.
Pause.
We want to bring
he's announcing that Pompeo and Pence are going to Turkey tomorrow. That is today. He announced this yesterday, and they're going to talk to a lot of people.
Strong talks.
Tough talk.
Strong talks with a lot of people. We want to bring our soldiers back home after so many years. And they're the greatest warriors in the world. They're policing. They're not a police force. They're a different kind of a force. We want to bring our soldiers back home.
Different kind of force.
And we're being very tough on Turkey and a lot of others.
So tough.
They have to maintain their own properties now. They have to maintain peace and safety.
Maintain your own
we'll see what
properties.
happens. The delegation,
hotels.
we're asking for a ceasefire. We put the strongest sanctions that you can imagine, but they get a lot. We have a lot in store if they don't have an impact.
Pause it for 1 second. Okay, so they're the strongest sanctions you can imagine, but we have a lot more where that came from if they don't have any impact. And so he's going there, telling them he's calling for a ceasefire. He just called for a ceasefire. He's sending his vice president and Mike Pompeo in to get a ceasefire from Turkey. Continue.
In store if they don't have an impact, including massive tariffs on steel. They ship a lot of steel to the United States. They make a lot of money shipping steel. They won't be making so much money. I just want to tell you that.
There you go. We got so many things in store for them. Let's just see what Erdogan, this guy who's about to get some tough stuff coming to him today, what he has to say.
He's going to be very scared that I talked like that.
And he's going to watch out. Here's a clip of Erdogan. Hope he doesn't soil himself because they're tough talk.
It's going to be embarrassing.
The American delegation is coming here. Are you worried about it? Will you be seeing them?
Amerikan delegasyonu geliyor. Bunun için endişeli misiniz?
Yo, niye endişeli oldun?
Why would we concerned about it?
What will you be saying to them?
Onlara neler diyeceksin?
Ben dimdik ayaktayım. Ben onlarla görüşmeyeceğim.
I'm standing. I'm not going to talk to them.
Onlar karşıtlarıyla görüşecek.
They will be talking their counterparts.
Ben Trump geldiği zaman konuşurum.
When Trump comes here, I'll be talking.
He's a gangster.
There you go. I don't know if people heard that.
Erdogan is what Trump wants to be so badly.
What he said was, why would we be worried? And she said, well, they're coming here. And he goes, I'm not going to be meeting with them. They're going to meet with their counterparts. I'm not going to talk. I'll talk to Trump if he shows up. That's it. Tough talk. Well, you steal. You're going to lose your steel.
He doesn't
tariffs.
care. I mean, it's so amazing. Just the typology. Like Bolsonaro is a freak and a weirdo who worships Trump, so he can sort of have that dynamic with him. But Modi and Erdogan just know exactly how to play Trump for their purposes, like every single time.
Yeah, they're the big kids.
They just cucked him. And
Excuse me,
so
Modi and Erdogan, right?
Here is this is
Pure.
This is the Donald Trump let the genie out of the bottle, as it were, and he is not going to be able to stuff it back in, and that is a real problem.
Tough talk.
That is a real problem. I mean, I don't know if this will be that moment, but at one point, the total incompetence catches up with you. Clearly what we've seen with this experiment where you put in just a rancid Chauncey Gardner into the presidency. We have seen this experiment, we're seeing it play out. How much of the institutions that make up the United States government, how much inertia is there? And starting to get the sense that the inertia, things are starting to sputter a little bit. And this is without a major crisis, or at least one that wasn't self-inflicted. But we will keep a tabs on this, obviously. One of today's sponsors is News Voice. It's the first ever entirely open, crowdsourced, and democratized platform for news. You can download the app for free at newsvoice.com/majority. As you know, the vast majority of news owned by the same 5 huge corporations. It's important for all of us, to understand where the news is coming from that we are reading. Who owns which media outlets, which political biases may be in play. It's fine to read this stuff, but you always got to know the assumptions that undergird it. And that's what News Voice helps you keep track of. It's a free crowdsourced website and mobile app. Lets you create personalized news feeds and maintain a clear picture of where your news is coming from and what political slants may exist. Helps you aggregate news from corporate outlets, international outlets, local news, and independent media. It gives you access to every side of every story. It's fueled by a community of users who contribute to the News Voice platform by fact-checking, submitting stories and sources that are missing, upvoting stories, and writing story summaries. You can also comment on stories and debate politics with other members of the community. Through staying active in the community, you can level up, earn perks on the platform. The News Voice Play feature lets you listen to your personal news feed every day through customizable audio news playlists. It's your own personally tailored radio station for news. News Voice is a next-generation news aggregator and social media platform that values transparency, good journalism, and productive political discussions. Couple of stories today in my stack. Pulled it from News Voice. It's just, it's going to give you a cross-section of news. I mean, in some ways, it's, I've done this with my Twitter feed, where I have sort of, over the years, curated the different news sources that I think will give me a balance of, in different perspectives on different stories. News Voice does it for you. You don't have to do this for 15 years to figure out who you should be following on Twitter. You get totally free access by going to newsvoice.com/majority. I put a link underneath this video. If you're watching on YouTube, we have one in the podcast description. Check it out. Also, Babbel will get you speaking a new language quickly and, most importantly, with confidence. Choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, and Italian. Speak your new language within weeks. What else they have? Russian and Portuguese, right? Do we know what the other languages are?
Russian, Portuguese, French.
French, yes. Italian, Spanish. I said those. Swedish? Turkish? Seriously? Dutch, Polish.
Learn how to say I
Boom.
won't be meeting with anybody besides Trump in Turkish.
If you want to do a good Erdogan impression, here's your
I
opportunity.
had to brush up on it. I would like to do an Erdogan impression.
Babbel's teaching method and their speech recognition technology has been proven to be effective across multiple studies. The lessons, Babbel's lessons, they're created by real human beings. Over 100 language experts. So no translation machine, no algorithms, no rigidity. These are created by language experts. They're engaging and convenient. They last only about 10 to 15 minutes. You can learn through interactive dialogue, so you can perfect your pronunciation and your accent, make you feel like you have a friend too. Babbel is available as an app or online. You use your progress. It syncs across all of your different devices. We're going to get this on. We're going to do the language challenge. We're all sitting here talking about, like, I want to learn Spanish. I want to learn, well, everybody wants to Spanish. Portuguese? Oh, yeah. Michael wants to learn Portuguese. Because you listen to the show, Babbel has a special offer for you. Go to Babbel.com, select the language of your choice. Once you try for free and are ready to sign up, select the 3-month option. Babbel will give you an additional 3 months for free with the promo code Majority. So that's 6 months for the cost of 3. That's 2 for 1 for those of you who don't know math. With the promo code Majority, Babbel, Babbel.com. Enter promo code Majority. Babbel, speak a new language with confidence. All right, let's get into this debate review. You will hear today, if you turn on the cable news, that Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg have really, they just shined. And now look, obviously, if you've listened to this program for more than 5 minutes over the course of the past 9 years, you will know that all of us here would receive that information with great skepticism. We watched the debate. Amy Klobuchar, the only thing I can tell you that really stuck out for me was that she had a sort of like a comedy hook on every one of her responses. And by comedy, I mean something that's not funny. She had just it was like,
real Michael Scott energy there.
Imagine that's what I was exactly. Imagine working for her, and in addition to you've just been forced to shave her legs.
Okay.
And now you got to laugh at the jokes.
I don't think that the jokes are hers. Like, I don't think
They're Bill Maher's.
No, but
They're
I don't.
Bill Maher's.
But I don't. It's not just that I don't think the jokes are hers. I don't think she jokes that way in real life, because what it clearly is a way. They have internal polling. This is my guess, that says that comes off as too harsh and uptight. And the stories about her being a bad boss, we need to show that you are a happy warrior. And so they come up, honestly, because these are so canned.
I think you're right.
That this is so deliberate. Like, it's not one of those, let's let Amy be Amy. It's like, let's manufacture Amy because, and here's the thing.
She should ask for her money back.
She should ask for her money back because she's not going anywhere. Anywhere. She's not going anywhere. And she is dancing. I mean, it's not.
I'm having so much fun.
Yes, look at me. I'm signaling fun.
You don't think that that's authentic? You don't think that that's Amy being Amy, bro?
Buttigieg actually, I think, sort of also just a lot of pablum. I do think that's who Buttigieg is, though. I have to say.
He is a walking McKinsey chart.
And he's like one of those Russian dolls that's just the same doll all the way down to the bottom, and then there's nothing.
Exactly. But I will say this. I do think Buttigieg may, and he, his numbers have been, I think this is a guy who could do well in Iowa. Could. I don't think I wouldn't say it's a 50% chance, but I would say it's in the 40s. He could do well in Iowa, which could have implications on the race going forward. But beyond that, I don't think the debate is going to change anything. The top line here, Bernie looked strong, which was important, and basically won the debate by announcing the endorsements before the debate was over.
And he was fantastic. I mean, honestly,
When
I think
he was
this was
allowed
his
to
best.
Well, it's important. Yes,
I think this is the best debate I've seen Bernie deliver in his whole presidential career.
Yes,
to be
and we're going
honest.
to play some clips. Important for him to come out and show that the heart attack was not in any way impacting his ability to campaign. Warren took a lot more heat than she has in the past. but it also, on some level, probably helps her insofar as it drew a distinction between her and people like Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Kamala Harris to some extent. And we're going to play this key difference between the two of them
and it
in a
shows
moment.
that Biden's star is falling, too.
Well, it's a function of Biden's star falling, and there's a perception that she is the front leader, and they're going after her. Biden also had probably what was his best night. And part of that, I think, what it shows is that Joe Biden chokes under pressure. And that is something to be very concerned about. Because, I mean, he did well last night, but nobody challenged him. And to the extent that he was challenged was the one time that he was incoherent. And so this is indicative, I think, of a problem that Joe Biden has. But now let's get to the clips. I don't think there was anything else really of great merit. Oh, the other thing, just to buttonhole this little digest of the debate. One fun fact, Tom Steyer was on stage. Tom Steyer has raised $48 million in this campaign, which is pretty impressive. But if you go to the next level of understanding his fundraising, you find out he actually raised, $3 million and put in 45 of his own. And, and here's the thing. I'm sorry. Yeah, he had $49 million. He has spent $47 million on this campaign.
And maybe we need a solution to it that risks the imagination of a new kind of possibility.
$47 million to get on that stage. Most of you did not even know he was running. Most of you did not know he was eligible. I would say 85% of the people watching that debate were not even aware that he was going to show up that day. It cost him $37,000 per word that he spoke in that debate. But I just want you to contemplate something. We heard a lot during that debate about whether billionaires should exist. I don't know if there is a more perfect example of how wasteful and stupid a billionaire could be than someone who spends $48 million, presumably in pursuit of promoting politics that have nothing to do with him, but are to save the country, as he said. And all it amounts to is $37,000 per word that he gets to speak on that debate stage. And for the life of me, I can't remember one single word he said. It was a completely useless endeavor. And had he spent that $48 million on state houses in Colorado and Arizona and Virginia and I don't know, half a dozen other states, you know what, dropping $48 million into state Senate races, not federal Senate. You could literally change the outcome in multiple states across the country. You could save abortion rights for women in multiple states across the country. You could change redistricting. You could change representation in the House. I mean, you could do so much with that money for the presumed goal that you're up there talking about.
You could give a UBI to 48,000 people.
You could do that, and that would be a waste of money, too. But you could have had genuine political impact. And the idea that, I mean, frankly, when Bernie was asked, do you think that billionaires should be existed? He should have just gone like this. Look at that guy. Do you know he spent $47 billion to get on this stage? 47 million?
Bernie is too nice. People are always saying that.
All right, let's get to the clips. I just, the more I think about it, the more enraged I get. I mean, it's just sort of, it's grotesque to see that type of, it's grotesque to see that type of money, that just that level of incompetence.
It's pure narcissism.
It's pure narcissism, but it's so incompetent too. Like, I could totally get being a narcissist. Great. But why not just be the guy who walk around? Like, you could be the guy who walks around and says oh yeah, I changed the outcome of 4 states.
Dude, you always say it yourself. He's literally expressing himself. It is
high on his own supply.
Pure. It's one thing, yes, I'm the power behind the throne or whatever, but this is pure, unmitigated. I always wanted to do this since I was a kid, and I'm going to do it.
Join a local theater company.
Really? There are two clips I want to play first about with Bernie. This was the only exchange with Biden that Bernie had that was, basically, I wouldn't say an attack on Biden, but to some extent an attack. And Bernie and Warren still studiously, it appears, are attempting to not attack Joe Biden. And which leads me to believe that they both believe that Biden will fade. And they don't want to alienate his voters, presumably older African Americans who are a big part of Joe Biden's base of support. And there may be a sense that older voters, and just older voters in general, right? Bernie's not doing great with older voters as well. Warren is looking for those from Biden. And I suspect they feel that older voters get a little bit put off by attacks. That's why you've seen what happened to Kamala Harris, what happened to Castro. But this is the one instance where I think Bernie could not help himself. Warren has stuff in the chamber for Biden when the time comes, I think. But I don't know if she'll ever unleash it. But here is Bernie.
For a total of 4 months. 4 months. Where do you get the rest? Where does it come from?
Two things.
Senator Sanders, respond.
In 2 ways. Joe, you talked about working with Republicans and getting things done. But you know what you also got done, and I say this as a good friend. You got the disastrous war in Iraq done. You got a bankruptcy bill, which is hurting middle-class families all over this country. You got trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China done, which have cost us 4 million jobs. And let's get to Medicare for all. Let's be honest. We spend twice as much per person as do the people of any other major country on earth. And the answer is, if we have the guts, and I would like to see the Democratic Party have that guts, to stand up to the drug companies and the insurance companies and tell them that the function of health care is to guarantee care to all people, not to make $100 billion in profit. If we stood together, we could create the great.
All right, and that last part and Bernie pivots to it quite quickly after basically saying, Joe Biden, you've gotten some stuff done with Republicans, stuff that you shouldn't be very proud of. He pivots to the appeal that he made multiple times throughout the night, and we'll play a clip of that in a moment. He appeals to Democrats to sort of take a position on this. Let's be the party that is for guaranteeing everyone health care. Guaranteeing means not only can you not lose it, it's there, regardless of if you have $20 in your pocket or not. And that was the theme that Bernie hit multiple times. Here is one of those moments where Bernie Sanders in the night basically, again, calls on the Democrats there to stop messing around and just go for the gold. Like, why? There is no reason to believe there's a single plan being offered by anybody on that stage who has, the chances of getting any of it passed through a Republican-controlled Senate. And so if the bottom line is we're going to have a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president to pass this, whatever plan it is, then the question becomes, which Democrats are going to stand in the way and why? There is no great constituencies out there for people who don't want free at point of service health care. There's no constituency out there that is like, I want the ability to fill out forms and send it in. Now, if you're very wealthy, you probably don't do that. You probably hire somebody to do it, or your assistant does it. I don't know who does it. Here's Sanders basically calling on the entire stage of folks to embrace this just on a moral level.
Senator Sanders, do you want to respond?
I get a little bit tired, I must say, of people defending a system which is dysfunctional, which is cruel. 87 million uninsured, 30,000 people dying every single year, 500,000 people going bankrupt. For what reason? They came down with cancer. I will tell you what the issue is here. The issue is whether the Democratic Party has the guts to stand up to the healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit, whether we have the guts to stand up to the corrupt, price-fixing pharmaceutical industry, which is charging us the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. And if we don't have the guts to do that, if all we can do is take their money, we should be ashamed about that.
It was so good. So much clarity.
The only thing missing from that, and it is a little bit nitpicky, is the hospitals, which remains a big problem.
Little bit nitpicky.
From a policy standpoint, it's hugely important. But from a rhetorical standpoint, I think like we all get the picture, right? There are people who are profiteering off of the misery of other human beings. They're just doing it in the guise of being a hospital. And they're doing it in the guise of investor-owned hospitals more often than not. And they're doing it for the purposes of maximizing shareholder value. And so they are immiserating people. They are putting them in bankruptcy. They are keeping them insecure. We also know, I should know, our employee-based health insurance is a way of controlling their employees. Because, the big riddle is like, for years, back in 2008, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, you'd hear all the time, whenever healthcare came up, you would hear some figure like $2,300 of every car that comes off of GM's lot. It's paying for the healthcare of retirees or something, whatever it was, some healthcare plan. And so you would think that private business would be the first in line to say, yeah, like even if I'm paying as a business, even if I'm paying the same amount in taxes, maybe if I'm even paying a little bit more in taxes than I would in that healthcare, the administrative costs of all that would be much easier for me to deal with. I would save money because the reality is they probably would save money, these businesses. But that's not the only value proposition for them in this. It is also that they basically have leverage over their workers. We see it in the GM strike. And you see it all the time. Like, you want to leave this job? You don't want to get paid? Good luck. Hope your kid stays healthy. Be a real shame if something happened to your
sick kid.
And so that is a big part of this. But there's no reason why the people on that stage couldn't be supporting this stuff. They want to differentiate themselves, and it's a little bit appalling. But I guess it's just a part of what you have to do. And I love the fact that Joe Biden in that first, like, as soon as Bernie said, like, we're defending these people, and he sort of smiles.
Yeah.
And then he realizes, like, he's talking about people dying, not being covered. I should
not
probably not
at a Comcast
I noticed that
fundraiser.
too. Let's watch that again.
Senator Sanders, do you want to
I
respond? And then
get
we're
a
coming
little
to you.
bit tired, I must say, of people defending a system which is dysfunctional, which is cruel. 87 million uninsured, 30,000 people
I don't
dying
understand why
every
Joe
single
Biden
year.
did that. It was
Joe
very
Biden's just like, yeah, coffee shop talk. Hey, look at the hippie over here. He wants to defend people. Ha! Oh, I guess I'm not at a Verizon fundraiser.
All of his hands are
right.
like, Joe, cover your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Hide those
Hunter's in the
blazing,
back like,
blinding
Dad,
Trumpers.
Hunter's in the back like, Dad, I gave up an awesome Chinese deal to do this, man. Don't blow it. It's a lot of money, bro.
Right, exactly.
Come on, don't laugh at the people dying. I know he's a stupid old hippie, but you're on stage, Dad. Oh, it's my brother's wife. Awesome.
I mean, and Joe Biden did come out yesterday and say that his family has agreed not to take any jobs on foreign boards if he becomes president. And
you better get me something back on Amtrak, Dad.
Only
that's
if
the whole
he
point.
Leaving a
becomes
lot of
president.
money
That's
on
the
the
point.
table.
what are they? They're not going to have to travel to Ukraine at that point.
Is
'cause they can just stay on any
Exxon
American
made in
companies.
America?
Hey, Dad, let me be your Jared.
Hey, Dad. Dad, what about Budweiser? Dad.
Meanwhile,
Can I do Coke in the White House, though?
Meanwhile,
Leaving a lot of money on the table, bro.
Hunter is, I think, my age. But
Dad.
but here is, so Joe Biden.
He's still Joe Biden's elder son.
Well, yeah, and Joe Biden's still Joe Biden. And he can't help but smile when he's accused of protecting a dysfunctional business. And he just can't help himself but lie and condescend in the exact same moment. Here is Joe Biden as Elizabeth Warren is talking about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. David Dayen, who has spent months and months back in the day reporting on the financial crisis, quoted a guy who literally wrote a book about the financial crisis, saying that Joe Biden was not a player at all involved in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He showed up for the signing, and that was it. But listen to the guy not just lie about his role in it, but condescend to Warren about it simultaneously. That's impressive stuff, folks. Because you got to be, you're getting high on your own supply. That's really that's going on there.
I agreed with, let me, she referenced me. Okay. I agreed with the great job she did. And I went on the floor and got you votes. I got votes for that bill. I convinced people to vote for it. So let's get those things straight, too.
Pause it.
Senator Warren, do you want to respond?
That is not accurate, according to all of the journalists who covered it and the people who have literally written about it. But whatever.
I got your votes. Like, Dad, you're not talking to me. That's Elizabeth Warren. Why are you so mad?
Good.
I agreed with, let me, she referenced me. Okay. I agreed with the great job she did. And I went on the floor and got you votes. I got votes for that bill. I convinced people to vote for it. So let's get those things straight, too.
And she knows he's full of it right here. And she's mad about it. And she's trying to contain. You watch this.
I am deeply grateful to President Obama, who fought so hard to make sure that agency was passed into law. And I am deeply grateful to every single person who fought for it and who helped pass it into law. But
Thank you.
Understand.
You did a hell of a job in your job.
Thank you. But understand.
Wow. In addition to mansplaining, he's going to pat her on the head now.
Yep. And I have to say, there was a lot communicated in that thank you.
So petulant.
Right?
Single person who fought for it and who helped pass it into law. But understand.
You did a hell of a job in your job.
Thank you. But
Bernie's just like,
understand
Jesus
this.
fucking Christ.
It was a dream big, fight hard.
Joe.
People told me, go for something little. Go for something small. Go for something that the big corporations will be able to accept. I said, no, let's go for an agency that will make structural change in our economy. And President Obama said, I will fight for that. And he sometimes had to fight against people in his own administration. We have to be willing to make good, big structural change.
Bernie's like, I'm 99% of the people embarrassed on behalf of other people in this room right now.
Exactly.
Did you see his hand go for his tie? He's like, ew.
Whoa, boy. Joe, I understand your virility is rapidly leaving your body and your brains are bursting.
Did a hell of a job in your job.
Gotta calm down. That's definitely a new drop.
We can do drop.
Did a hell of a job in your job.
How? Can you guys play that next time I skip work?
And she knows what role he played there. And as I think, that was that sort of a very telling moment, I think, about her as a candidate and as just an operator. Like she could have said, yes, and I thank you, Joe, and then moved on. But she knew he was lying. I would be very surprised if he wasn't one of the obstacles, frankly, to what she was doing based upon who his constituency is.
So there's a mixed report on this from Ryan Grimm, which is interesting. Biden did nothing. Absolutely did not help. Now, for whatever reason, Biden's economic team, Kaufman, but Jared Bernstein specifically backed her extremely strongly. So Biden had the most progressive people around him in the White House with regards to economic policy, which I guess is a credit to him because at the end of the day, he did staff with them, but it was them, not him.
Yeah. The idea that he was out there getting votes on the floor, not the case. No. I wouldn't be surprised if Jared Bernstein was helping in terms of the development of it, but from the political aspect, she was very clear. She could have said, yes, thank you, Joe, but she made a very strong point of I thank everybody who is involved.
I mean, she's not going to say this, obviously, because there's no, because it would benefit Sanders and she's not going to want to attack Obama. But I believe the real story is not only did Joe not help when Obama was finally convinced to do this, he wasn't necessarily a yes. She was rightfully pissed that he wasn't going to appoint her. And there's a meeting where Sanders is campaigning for her to get the head of the CFP. And Obama looks at Sanders apparently and he goes, see, this is a problem with progressives. You always think the glass is half empty. You're getting the agency, but you're upset because she's not going to get the head of it.
Right.
And Bernie looked at him. He's like, Jesus Christ, you're a prick.
There you go.
Okay. So
Bernie supports women.
Biden did not help, but his economic team did, which is interesting. People like Kaufman and Bernstein are interesting relative to Biden's record.
Here is both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both attacked the protection of billionaires. First, here is Bernie Sanders on taxing billionaires. Let's play this one.
And you introduced your wealth tax, which would tax the assets of the wealthiest Americans. You said, quoting you, Senator, billionaires should not exist. Is the goal of your plan to tax billionaires out of existence?
When you have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the street today, when you have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured, when you got hundreds of thousands of kids who cannot afford to go to college and millions struggling with the oppressive burden of student debt. And then you also have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. That is a moral and economic outrage. And the truth is, we cannot afford to continue this level of income and wealth inequality, and we cannot afford a billionaire class whose greed and corruption has been at war with the working families of this country for 45 years. So if you are asking me, do I think we should demand that the wealthy start paying, the wealthiest, top 0.1%, start paying their fair share of taxes so we can create a nation and a government that works for all of us? Yes, that's exactly what I believe.
Now, technically, the question was actually, do you think we should tax billionaires out of existence? And the short answer to that is yes. I can see to a certain extent. I mean, I think the fact that he doesn't feel comfortable just saying that, yes, I think is probably a function of a diseased society that we have on some level where, like there would be some type of offense. Like, well, wait a second, you can't, that's so wrong. It's an affront on freedom to tax a billionaire out of existence to where they would just be 100 millionaire. First of all, it's just a bizarre, threshold to say, is where freedom lies, right? I mean, the idea that we would have confiscatory taxes is for some reason, well, first of all taxes are confiscatory on some level. But one that is aimed just to be confiscatory is also about maintaining some remote and very remote semblance of political equality and the ability to allow the directions our society move in to be at least remotely determined by all the people who live in society. I mean, we have seen the damage that can be done by billionaires based upon even their best of intentions. Even if I don't believe that Bill Gates didn't see an emerging market in schools, and therefore, I mean, and I don't know whether to believe that or not, but let's just assume that every single dollar that Bill Gates spent on reforming education, quotation marks, was spent with the purest of intentions. And he was able to divorce the way that he's not able to do that. For the purest of intentions. They spent $750 million, $250 million, on enhancing school education. By doing that, they convinced a lot of other money to follow suit. They convinced an entire country to pursue these notions of high stakes testing, of a way of measuring value added to teachers. And at the end of this experiment, after literally school district after school district pursued grants and whatnot, after the entire country, in many respects, changed their perspective of how to assess education and what to do with it, they did a study. The Rand Corporation, is that what it is? Rand? Is that the one of the? They did it at the end of 2018, maybe it was, or the end of 2017, I can't remember. And they found that their experiment was an absolute failure. And in fact, that the Rand said we should listen to educators more and we should basically do what they've been saying this whole entire time. It was a big oopsie. It was barely reported in the press, if at all. I mean, I remember when we were talking about it, and I was certainly looking around. Is anybody going to even acknowledge the fact that a billionaire was able to take our entire education system and drive it into an iceberg and then just walk away going like, boop, my bad. I tried. Going to give me points for that. On to the next thing. if you have one person or 3 families or 5 families who have the ability to change the direction of policy in this way, it is not only incredibly undemocratic, but more often than not will be a complete disaster because it will not bring in a sufficient number of people who are involved in that area. And you get disasters like this.
May I do a slight tangent on Bill Gates? New York Times piece, very conservatively reported. Bill Gates went to great efforts to minimize his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Just putting it out there.
Well, okay, but that is
a tangent. I said that.
Right.
Told you.
Can I
but
just
I think
add
it's
one
worth
thing?
it's worth noting.
But the bottom line is that, and then of course, from a political standpoint, I mean, it's not, there's no difference there. Political, I mean, that is a political standpoint. That is just a broad swath of society that was just driven into an
People's
iceberg.
feedback loops
look,
get interrupted.
In addition to all of that stuff being true, as I've said time and again, billionaires aren't billionaires because they worked a billion times harder than everyone else. They're billionaires because they got other people to work for them and they exploited them, and other people's work made that money, and it's not asking too much to get some of it back.
I totally agree. And that is like a fairness question on some level. But even if we had an example of a billionaire who somehow, well, they can't, right? I mean, I'm basically saying, like, if we had the ability for someone to fly, if I had wings, I would be able to fly. But it's not just a question of fairness in whether they deserve the money or not. Because of course, it's not possible for someone to deserve that money. You get it because you're lucky. I don't even feel like I deserve the money that I make doing this. Nobody deserves anything. Nobody who's in Syria right now deserves to have lost their home. Nobody deserves to have their parents or their children killed.
I mean, workers do deserve the fruits of their labor.
Well, I think to a certain extent, of course, but I mean, there's no question of deserving. There's a question of fairness, but this notion of deserving. The bottom line is society. It is dysfunctional for society. It is anti-democratic, and it is dysfunctional to allow people to have this much wealth, which inevitably allows them to have an outsized amount of political power. And
I think the different messages will resonate differently with different people. Some people
I
might
agree.
respond better to, this is what's going to be better for society. And some people might respond better to, these assholes stole something from you and we're going to get it back.
Right. And it's, look, and we're sitting on a time now where there's a report where for the first time ever, workers are paying a higher tax rate than investors and owners. Play this graph. The first time ever. And understand, and this is a function, Emmanuel Saez and Gabriel Zuckman of University of California, Berkeley, their new book, Triumph of Injustice, present data that's showing in 2018, labor income was taxed at a higher rate than capital income for the first time in modern U.S. history. The proximate cause of the shift was the 2017 Tax Cuts and Job Act, which dramatically slashed taxes on corporate profits and on estates, both forms of capital income. This is according to their analysis. They note, however, that the trend has been happening for decades, driven in large part by the same forces that have pushed billionaires' tax rates below that of the working class. From the 40s to the 80s, the average tax rate on capital exceeded 40%, while labor paid less than 25%. Since its peak in the 50s, however, the average capital tax rate has been cut by 20 percentage points. At the same time, labor taxation has risen by more than 10 points, driven by the upsurge in payroll taxes. I mean, this is just absurd. And understand, what this also represents is not only a tremendous amount of, obviously of unfairness and instability. We're giving capital so much free stuff. Right? Like all the services that they use all of the features of society that have worked so well for them in allowing them to accrue that much wealth, they are getting at a discounted rate, and we are paying for it. Like they say, there's no free lunch. They're getting a free lunch, and we're paying for it. And look, that's the way society works.
Well, it's a snowball effect, right? The more money they have, the more power they have. The more power they have to amass even more money.
Indeed. Indeed. But they also have been set up. We have since 1980, you can see it right there. I mean, the graph is right there, even in maybe 1970, mid-70s. You can see that the context is set up there. And of course, I can accrue more money. You give me free stuff, I will accrue more money. If you guys all here are free, and somebody's going to send me, half a dozen of audio editors and video editors and send it to me for free, more free services, this office becomes free. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to amass more wealth, and I'm going to do it more quickly, and I'm going to do it more efficiently, and I'm going to be able to increase the rate in which I acquire more wealth because I'm getting free stuff.
That's what capitalism is.
All right, we're going to take a break.
Free stuff for some.
Speaking of which, and we'll create billionaires out there, so we're not going to give you any more of this show for free. So I'm sorry, Tom Steyer. Go get your free political content somewhere else.
More like Tom Don't Try Her.
Yeah. Sort of like that. Folks, we're going to head into the fun half. We've got a little more footage on the debate. We've got more on the big announcement and the implications of the squad, 3/4 of the squad endorsing Bernie Sanders. This is going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big deal in a multitude of ways. It's going to be a big deal because they're going to go out there and they're going to campaign extensively. AOC, one of the top 3 fundraisers in the House. And she is now going to have another platform where, the campaign's going to be sending her around. And so this is not only going to, she's going to build support for Bernie Sanders, but she's going to be building support for a new generation of people to make sure that whatever Sanders built, regardless of what happens with the presidential campaign, that there's going to be a movement and and leaders for this movement going forward. And that is huge. That is, I think, hugely important, and will pay dividends. I mean, this is good news for my kids, as far as I'm concerned. So this is going to be really important. It's going to be a big week. We will be talking about that for a while to come. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with AOC out on the campaign trail. And, because you usually don't get this level of, you start to see some of this like in like when it's in the general election. You start to see surrogates go out and do speeches in front of 5,000 people, 10,000. Like, I think we're going to see that.
It's going to start earlier.
We're going to see that early.
And I got to tell, I think Ilhan Omar draws several thousand people too.
It's going to be fascinating.
I just want to know
7,000 urban people, maybe.
Well, we will. Emphasis on urban. I just want to make an honorable mention. I think particularly with regards to Omar, I think her political commitments are very clear. But, Bernie really stood out in his clarity of supporting her when the pile-on was happening. And you could chart a graph from his clear clarity and solidarity to Warren, decent-ish, okay, and then just going down to, some of the candidates like Gillibrand, who dropped out, was just awful.
Right.
And so I think, another huge testament to Sanders and to that relationship.
Folks, Your support makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show, commercial free, but you also get the fun half. And occasionally we drop down, some extra bonus content.
You would have got the debate last night.
You would have gotten the debate last night. Oh, yeah, we gave that audio. We're still working out the video stuff. We got shut down by Twitch. We lost our channel.
CNN hates us for playing Minecraft.
Screw them.
Disgusting.
But we'll be back up on Twitch soon, and we'll get that stuff nailed down. Also, subscribe to the AM Quickie. Did you download the new app? Okay, I think the app we have a new app on Android, and we are waiting for it to get approved on the iPhone. But the news is, I think you're going to be able to get the AM Quickie on the app now too. So check that out. But in the meantime, go to amquickie.com, sign up, listen to it. 5 minutes every morning. Gives you the top headlines in the politics for the day. And very tough to keep on top of all this stuff these days. Believe me, even for me. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Today was Wednesday. Yesterday was Tuesday. However, we had a debate. So in many respects, today is Tuesday.
In a certain sense.
As far as this office is concerned. Isn't that right, Michael?
Indeed. At 6 p.m., live stream with Andre Dumise, who is a writer for Maclean's, and just an interview with Jagmeet Singh. We're going to be talking about the Caribbean, Canada, Bernie Sanders. Check out the standalone live stream. Very excited to do that. Patrons have heard us talk about exiting extremism before. And then on the main show, a little bit of an update connecting Haiti and Ecuador and the history of World Bank IMF policies. And then Ryan Grimm is coming in studio, and we are talking about the mega endorsements, the debates, and probably getting into Hunter Biden, especially because I think that basically he's the new Mike Flynn Jr. impression, and I'm going to want to milk that. Patreon.com/TMBS Michael Brooks Show on YouTube, where we're about to hit our first 82,000 subs. So, and you can find additional standalone streams. Snag your tickets to Philly at World Cafe November 23rd with Krystal Ball, Artesia Balthrop, and Emma Vigeland. Link on the homepage.
Jamie.
So this week on the Antifada, we've unlocked a very premium offering for anyone who's not yet a subscriber. It is History is a Weapon, number 4, the pivotal decade, obviously the 1970s, with Matt Chrisman and Sean KB. So going back to that graph we just looked at, they really go into detail about exactly what happened in the 1970s that swung power back from labor to capital. So they talk about how the global crisis upended the golden age of American capitalism, how Richard Nixon rode a wave of aggrievement to become the voice of a silent majority in backlash, and how the uneasy alliance between organized labor and the Democratic Party began to fracture as stagflation undermined the post-war compromise. Check it out, folks.
Oh, folks, Matt will do this. We got to play that clip. Again, if you have a question about our inside our inside glossary, inside joke glossary can help you with, send an email with the subject line memes to majorityreporters@gmail.com. Memes at majorityreporters@gmail.com. And we will include it in our glossary. Matt.
Literary hangover. We're going to be doing some Salem witch trial stuff. So check that out, folks.
All right. See you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 eighths. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance. Rand Paul. I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey! Shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
Oh, look at that. I'm wearing the same shirt today as I did at the end of that thing. And this is tough for me to say, but I've worn the shirt so much that it's ripping in my elbows. So I'm going to try and sew it. Maybe I'll do an interior patch. Is that like... I feel like I have...
That'd be good for your credibility.
I feel like there are people who I know who would be rather distressed if they knew I was doing an interior patch on my shirt.
Why?
Just because, like, it's, I don't know, just a little bit sad. Like, you know, give up on the shirt. The shirt's not that great. You've had it for a long time. I got a lot of use out of the shirt. I've worn the shirt a lot of times.
Yeah, I know. You're not just going to throw it in the trash.
No,
Come
I'm
on.
not. I'm gonna wear it like this. Sleeves up for a long time. That's the way I roll. I did that with my striped shirt for a long time. Nobody ever noticed. Anyways, I just happened to see the same shirt on the end of that video, so I got a little bit carried away. Folks, Pete Buttigieg, what the heck is wrong with this guy? You know, I know millennials, they don't place roots down, right? Isn't that the thing about millennials? They're very mobile.
Rootless cosmopolitans.
They're rootless, right? Well, Pete Buttigieg is showing us how easy it is to move through stuff. When was this video from? Do we know? This is from January. Do you remember January? What's that? February. Sorry, February. Do you remember February? That was a long time ago, folks. February. That was, oh gosh, 8 whole months ago. Let's look and see how far Pete Buttigieg has moved. Again, he's a millennial. Here he is on Morning Joe talking to some dude on Morning Joe.
Look, I think what we have to decide is, are we going to keep being defined by where these fence posts are, or are we going to do what the right very successfully did over the last 40 years and redefine them? Medicare for All is a great example. Again, ACA, which was a conservative proposal, came to be caricatured as left-wing by a very disciplined right-wing message machine, right? What is Medicare for All? It's a compromise. I mean, in the UK, you got national health care. That would be the left-wing, the true left-wing position. The true right-wing position is free for all corporate. And the compromise position is a single-payer system where you have private doctors but a public payer. We've got to stop allowing the right to move the goalposts and characterize the entire center of the debate.
Respectfully, it's not.
Okay, so there he is, Pete Buttigieg in February, saying the center of the debate is actually Medicare for all. And we've got to stop allowing the right to move the goalposts, right? I mean, that's what we've got to do. But ladies and gentlemen, that was all the way back in February. That's not where we are today, right, Pete?
Talk about that moment that we just played in our intro where you went at it with Senator Elizabeth Warren about her Medicare for All plan, and you wanted a simple yes or no answer of will she raise taxes? And what she ended up saying time and again was Americans' household costs will come down with her plan. What does it matter to you what bucket it comes out of?
Well, not only is it important to have yes or no answers to yes or no questions at a time when people are so frustrated with Washington speak, but also there's still been no explanation for a multi-trillion-dollar hole in this plan. I have a lot of respect for Senator Warren, but last night she was more specific and forthcoming about the number of selfies she's taken than about how this plan is going to be funded. And that's a real problem, especially when there's a better way to deliver health care coverage to everybody. Look, what most Americans want is to have an opportunity to walk away from their private plan, to have that, what I call Medicare for all who want it alternative, but also to be able to keep their private plan if they would prefer. And I think that's the right answer, especially when you do the math and realize it's also an answer that is paid for, unlike the Medicare for all, whether you want it or not plans that still have this giant question mark over how it's supposed to work.
You know, one of the things I love about juxtaposing those two clips is you hear him back in February where he wasn't sure what lane he was going to run in. And he was just maybe speaking from actual, just like, policy knowledge. And like, look, let's be honest. Medicare for all is the down the road, center, middle, obvious thing. And we shouldn't allow the right wing to use their talking points to convince us of otherwise. And then he learns from himself, like he's got artificial intelligence almost, because by October, he's actually spouting some of those right-wing talking points. But let's see if we can't get this, his algorithm to relearn why he knew back in February.
Hey, it was a different time.
The Medicare for All plan is a better plan with the help of Dr. Don Berwick, the former Medicare administrator, who's going to explain why a public option, a Medicare for those who want it, won't work. This is simple. And frankly, I think that Bernie or Warren should have delivered this message. They both had opportunities to do it and they didn't do it. They need to do this. They need to start pointing out that the plans that Pete Buttigieg and others are presenting is basically unicorn plans. They will not work as they're talking them about this. They can be cheap as all hell if they want, but they won't work. And here's Don Berwick to explain why.
I'm a little worried about the public option for a kind of technical reason. Insurance companies want to provide insurance to people that don't need it. That's how they make money. And so anything that can be done to game risk so that
public option would be used by all the people who really need the insurance the most.
And if I were insurance companies would then try to find ways to have people who really need care go to the public option, which would enrich it'd be a good business case for them, and that's not good for the country.
It's not good for the country because then it becomes even more expensive. That's the other half of that equation. When the sicker people, the people who need the insurance, go into the public option, it becomes more expensive because you don't have as many people paying in. You don't have the people who don't use it. 80% of our medical costs are borne by 20% of the people. You just don't know which 20% they are until they get sick. And then when you do, if they all move to the public option and the healthy people are all in the private option, then instead of people's payments into an insurance fund paying for the sick people, it goes to shareholders and is frankly inflated for how many people actually use it in that private sector. And then, as a public sector standpoint, we have to pay more because essentially those shareholders, those CEOs, those board of directors, they're taking the money that would make the system work for everybody. It's going in their pocket instead of being spread around to people who need it for health insurance, I mean, to pay for health care. And so it's time for Bernie and Warren to shift the debate. Instead of addressing like, how are you going to pay for it? Because we know how you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it with taxes, and it's going to be a net savings to people in terms of cost. But then the next step is to say, your plan doesn't work because of the basic functioning of insurance. In fact, insurance companies used to be in favor of a Medicare expansion or buy-in at age 55. And why? Because they calculated that they could make more money by offloading people from age 55 to 65. Because statistically speaking, you'll probably have people with more ailments in that age group than you will in younger ages, or to the extent that they have in younger ages, you already see them before they come for your insurance. You can price it better. And that will be offloaded to the public sector. But then they didn't need to do that with the ACA because they got all the subsidies from the government to sustain their business. And that's why they changed their mind on that. And that's why Joe Lieberman changed his mind on that back when the ACA fight was happening. But the bottom line is the public option, it just simply does not work. It might work in the context of the exchanges, insofar as you're talking about a limited pool of people defined by people who don't qualify for other insurance, like at work. But we know what the point of having employer-based insurance is. It is to control their workforce. That's why they anticipated there was a surprise in the way that the exchanges worked within the context of society. There was an assumption that companies would stop offering health insurance and say to their employer and employees, like, look, I'll give you a small subsidy. You go buy it in the exchange. Because that way I don't have to deal with any of this mess. But it didn't happen nearly to the extent that was projected. And it's because it wasn't just about cost to the companies. It was about control over their employees. And you want to empower labor, one of the ways you do it, a big way, is by not making them beholden to management to make sure that if their kids get sick, they're not going to be indigent.
Yeah, and then once the public option is weighed down and bloated and crashes because there is still a private market, they can point to that and say, oh, look, the public option doesn't work.
The worst part about it, it's not even the existence, in my mind, it's not even the existence of the private market. It's that you're not making everyone pay into the public one. That is the problem. You need to have everybody pay their premiums to the government to make the government insurance work. Those premiums, I mean, they're a tax, but it's all a tax. It's just one's a private tax, one's a public tax.
Say paying premiums feels like a tax.
Like the concept of tax is a little bit fluid. They called the penalty to the ACA a tax. It's not. It was a penalty. But at the end, I get a buddy, lawyer Matthew, actually. I was introduced to this notion. He would give his kid, his kid wanted like an orange juice. He brings the orange juice over and he takes a big sip. And the kid is like, what are you doing? Why are you drinking that? He goes, it's tax. It's a little tax. Or, a bite out of his ice cream cone, whatever it is. Exactly.
That's cool. That's good parenting.
Tax can mean a bunch of different things.
Is it safe to assume that all of the people fighting against Medicare for all and for plans that are not going to work understand this?
It is, we know that Pete Buttigieg understood it in February. Now, maybe he suffered some type of head trauma and forgot it by October, but he knows. He knows. Maybe it's the political cowardice that is a function of, I just don't know we can sell this to the American public. It's conceivable that's one thing. Like, Adam Green would come on the show years ago and say, one of the things that they were trying to do at the PCCC was to go in and show candidates that they can take these positions and show them polling that suggests that there's a lot of support for them out there. And candidates didn't actually know this. I think you can never underestimate ignorance as an explanation for a lot of stuff. But I imagine Pete Buttigieg understands this. He was a McKinsey, consultant.
He's so smart.
All right. Here is another moment that was worth watching in the debate. If you want to understand, because a lot of people have asked me, what happened to Kamala Harris? Why isn't she doing well? I can't quite explain why she's not doing well, but I can show you an example of just somebody who does not have someone who has a tin ear, I think, right? This is fascinating. She is going at Elizabeth Warren. Warren has talked about, the question is, breaking up big tech companies. Is that problematic? Because Warren has been an antitrust person for an extended period of time. She has called out Zuckerberg directly. And she wants to, antitrust across different sectors. And so here's Harris going at her. And it sounds like Harris is about to question Warren on some element of antitrust and about monopolies that Warren hadn't thought of. And you get the sense that Warren is bracing for this.
Because they still think of Harris as a formidable opponent. So Harris needs to cut into Warren. So she's like, all right, here it comes.
Here it comes. And Warren Harris starts off with okay, Elizabeth, you say this about monopolies, but why haven't you dealt with this?
Of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me, because here we have Donald Trump.
All right, pause it. Now, we got to go back and no, keep that, because I want to just play the smile one more time here.
Well, the smile is key.
Okay. She thinks she's about to get caught on something and I've been in this position before, I prep. Oh my God, I'm going to be debating this libertarian professor. And then he shows up and he's not as formidable as I thought he might be. And here is Elizabeth Warren girding herself for this attack. And then she has to hold back a laugh when it's, how come you haven't called for Trump to be banned from Twitter? Watch this.
The rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me.
That's pretty good. All right, so let's play the whole clip because it's pretty amazing. Are you seriously talking about antitrust and then bringing it into the question of banning Trump from Twitter? Like, what was amazing too is that Harris was on Twitter later bemoaning the fact that a bunch of different topics weren't brought up, and she spent I don't know what percentage of her time. I would say maybe a sixth of her talking time.
I mean, how much did you speak for? Like 9, 10 minutes?
Thing is,
This was 2 minutes of that.
Right.
I mean, but this is an incredible trend because, okay, she goes after Biden on busing, which is a real issue, but they have the T-shirts literally ready to go, right? And then within days, she's like, yeah, but actually, I essentially have the same policy. I just wanted to use that. Then, we criticized her on the straw thing. I think that's in some ways very analogous of like, here's something I can signify, but I don't actually want to talk structurally. Like, I'm not talking about a Green New Deal. I'm not talking about radical emissions cuts. And now we go to this.
She's not even just talking structurally.
It's getting increasingly ridiculous. Because at least a straw, I don't think that's smart politics, but you could still say, okay, there's plastic pollution. Like,
it's material.
There's something material to it, even if it's not the way to go, I think. And now we're just going into, all right, let's talk antitrust. Donald Trump didn't read the terms of service.
And what about shadow banning?
And what about shadow ban? I mean,
Right.
this is honestly, I mean, this is resistance Maria Bartiromo stuff. It's embarrassing.
All right,
Thank you. But I do want to also say this. What we're talking about is a grave injustice when rules apply to some but not equally to all, and in particular when the rules that apply to the powerless don't apply to the powerful. And so, Senator Warren, I just want to say that I was surprised to hear that you did not agree with me that on this subject of what should be the rules around corporate responsibility for these big tech companies, when I called on Twitter to suspend Donald Trump's account, that you did not agree, and I would urge you to join me, because here we have Donald Trump, who has 65 million Twitter followers, and is using that platform as the President of the United States to openly intimidate witnesses, to threaten witnesses, to obstruct justice. And he and his account should be taken down. We saw in El Paso that shooter in his manifesto was informed by how Donald Trump uses that platform. And this is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site.
You know what
it
it
is?
is?
A matter of safety.
You know what this reminds me of? Laura Loomer.
No,
It
no.
honestly
Oh my
does.
God.
It honestly does.
I'm
because
going
it's
to be
like,
chaining
I'm
myself
gonna chain,
in front of
honestly,
Twitter
You're
headquarters.
going to start off
because dude's got to go.
You're going to introduce. You're going to talk about the premise is that we live in a society with two-tiered system of justice. We have a two-tiered system of rules, those for the powerful and those for the weak.
Those for
And
Steve
I am
Mnuchin and
shocked.
those for, Paul
I am
Bennett.
shocked that you will not join me in calling for this guy to be banned from Twitter.
I really,
honestly, like when you think of all the disparity that exists in this society.
That's why I would
That's
like.
what you come
that's
up
why,
with?
Senator Warren, I would like you to join me in condemning myself for putting the mothers of truant children in prison and letting Steve Mnuchin get away with multiple financial crimes because of this whole two-tiered justice system I was just talking about. Right?
I just think like you could do that Martin Luther King bit essentially with like, just sort of the smallest of like, why am I getting?
Why
am I
George
not?
Wallace get extra editorial space?
It's
ridiculous.
Actually, it's even
That's even worse. I couldn't
It's
think
not
of
even-
anything. Yeah.
It's just like
I couldn't think of anything actually analogously small.
I drive my car, and on Thursdays when the parking rates are a nickel more, that's the society and justice that we have. Or I can't even.
No,
come up
that
with
wouldn't even work. There's literally nothing that you could think of that he even
like
touched.
she almost Warren almost doubled over in laughter, like because she thought like, oh, there's something big coming.
No, her
that's
smirk
quite a
was
wind
hilarious. The first part of the wind up, I thought she was actually going to go into Warren's corporate legal advising stuff. I was like, is she going to talk about that? That's fascinating.
No.
And then she went to the monopoly stuff, and I was like, I mean, Harris is another like she's an attorney, obviously. Maybe Warren missed something in her plan, and then just
All
like
right.
Donald Trump needs to
Hold
get
on.
off Twitter.
Keep going.
By the way,
and
can I
then
just quote
pull up
Donald
this-
Trump?
Pull up this tweet too after
I
we're
love
done.
Donald Trump. Said, I'm still not going to tweet about you. Sorry.
And shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
Thank you. Senator Warren, you can respond.
So, look, I don't just want to push Donald Trump off Twitter. I want to push him out of the White House. That's our job. But the way
join me in saying that his Twitter
let's
account should be
figure-
shut down.
Let's figure out
No?
why it is that we have had laws on the books for antitrust for over a century, and yet for decades now. We've all called on how the big drug companies are calling the shots in Washington, big ag, how the gun industry, big tech. You know, we really need to address the elephant in the room, and that is how campaigns are financed.
You can't say your corporate responsibility if it doesn't apply to everyone.
I announced this morning that I'm not going to take any money from big tech executives, from Wall Street executives. We've already agreed, Bernie and I, we're not taking any money from big pharma executives. You can't go behind closed doors and take the money of these executives and then turn around and expect that these are the people who are actually finally going to enforce the laws. We need campaign finance rules
Thank you,
and
Senator Warren.
practices
Senator Harris?
that support us all.
You can't. It does not represent a system of justice to say that the rules will apply differently to different people. This is a matter, you are saying, of holding big tech accountable. Holding big tech accountable because they have an outsized influence on people's perceptions about issues, and they actually influence behaviors. We all have to agree this is their power. It is immense.
Senator Klobuchar, let me bring you in here. Your response.
I'm not finished.
I'm still talking about banning on Twitter.
That it seems to me that you would be able to join me in saying the rule has to apply to Twitter the same way it does to Facebook.
Look, I think all of the rules should apply across the board. I don't have a problem with that.
So you will
what
join
I
me in
do
saying
have
Twitter
a
should shut down that
problem with
account?
is that if we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big tech, then we should ask if people are taking money from the big tech executives. If we're going to talk seriously about breaking up big drug companies, we should ask if people are financing their campaigns by taking money from big drug.
Okay, now I do have a theory that occurs to me as I'm watching this. Let's put up the tweet, though, that Kamala Harris tweeted out. You just watched, what was that, a 2.5-minute exchange? That
is your theory that she's barred out on Xanax?
After the debate, she wrote 3 hours. Not one question about climate crisis, not one question about LGBTQ rights, not one question about immigration. These issues are too important to ignore after you talk about banning Donald Trump from Twitter. Now, I do have a theory. There have been instances, most of this granted in fiction, where you make some type of Faustian bargain where if you say certain words or get certain words to be said by someone else, then you get something. It's quite possible that she had some type of deal with the devil where if she could convince Warren to say those words, Kamala Harris would be president. Like, that's just one of my theories. Because otherwise, it is completely baffling as to what she thought she was getting.
She's so marginal right now that it wasn't even worth it to say two-tier justice system. Steve Mnuchin, thank you. Next. I mean, like we were saying earlier in prep that, I mean, Warren wasn't even that great in response because it's like when you're playing tennis with somebody who has like this totally bizarre game without like any proper strokes, and they somehow just keep lobbing the ball over the net. You can't actually really get into a rhythm yourself. It's like, I guess I'll turn this into a question about campaign contributions. This person's really obsessed with this really trivial thing.
Yeah, she's clearly getting up on that sand. She used to be much better at this, and now she's, well, you saw.
You know, you lost John Lovett. Might not be long for Kamala Harris.
That's right. John Lovett said Kamala Harris going after Elizabeth Warren on banning Trump from Twitter is one of the more pathetic stunts I've seen in a debate. And then who's Ian Sams?
It's Kamala National Press
Oh, okay.
Secretary.
Well, that makes sense. I was like, who's this guy saying this is wild, John? He's violating Twitter rules. Like, who's still hitting this? Oh, of course. It's the guy who advised her to say this, probably. Yeah. Oh, I've got the perfect thing for you to say. You can nail her because Warren has not come out in favor of banning Trump from Twitter. I mean, wow.
I could imagine like maybe.
Oh, there's a lot of like Twitter donuts.
Yeah, there's a couple of like weirdos in Bethesda.
Go to the phones. You're calling from a 447 or 44. Is it you calling from overseas? 44? Is this Britain?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's this?
Hello, fantastic. This is Jerry from London. How are you?
Jerry from London. Welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello. I just want to say hello to Michael Brooks. Love your show, Sam. You're a great guy. I love what you're doing. And Jamie, you're quite cute. So yeah, nice one. Anyways, sorry. So things in London, yeah. You've got Corbyn, you've got John McDonnell, Clark, other things that are going on, and things don't look so good at the moment. I was just wondering. That's the first time calling. Is in like what the polls are quite bad at the moment, and by the looks of it, if Corbyn doesn't win, there's going to be a hard Brexit. There's going to be all sorts of things that's going to go wrong. And I was just wondering, what advice would you have to say to get involved, to get more involved, and what can you do as an individual to increase the prospects of the Jeremy Corbyn government?
Oh boy, I appreciate the call. We'll let you go and answer it. What can you do to increase the odds of a Jeremy Corbyn government? I mean, to be honest with you, I've been, obviously watching what's been going on in Parliament. I have as far as I can tell, maybe it has something to do with like how many buttons on your coat. I have no idea. I mean, I think, look, the idea is, I don't think it's distinct from what we talk about here is find your local, organizing. Find local organizers and get involved and, go out, tell your neighbors, talk about it. I mean, I can't quite figure out how anything happens there. Is there going to be an election there? Is Parliament still existing?
There's going to have to be an election sooner or later. I would just say the Labour Party under Corbyn and McDonald are putting forward some of the most interesting ideas in global politics today. They're talking new ideas on land ownership. I mentioned this recently, like even just the distinction between improving access to home ownership, of course, but actually really saying like, no, land is a commons, right? Like own your house, not the land underneath it. Right to buy for workers and worker cooperatives, protecting the NHS. So I would just say, I mean, even more extremely in here, there's a war against Corbyn, and I would hold firm and support a real agenda.
Appreciate the call. Going for 913. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 913.
Hey, Sam. This is Philip in St. Louis. How are you guys?
Good. Philip in St. Louis. What's on your mind?
Not much. So I'm a pharmacist here, and unfortunately, when you guys kept quiet when Klobuchar was talking, the one thing that kind of stood out to me was this plan that she said like 2% tax on every milligram or something. Have you guys looked into that at all? I mean, I know it's Klobuchar, but I didn't know if you guys were familiar with it.
No.
Okay.
She wanted 2% tax on every milligram of opioids?
Yeah. So like you said, it kind of trickled through, and when you guys quit talking briefly, and I kind of was very perplexed by it because I was like, so as a pharmacist, I'm like, that's by far one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard of in my life, because you can have, like, say there's this one drug that's an opioid called Dilaudid. Well, those usually are dosed at like 2 or 4 milligram tablets, and then you got like oxycodone, which can go up to like 30 or 60 milligrams. So it's like, so all these drug companies are going to start going to these smaller doses, and then like who's she's going to tax? The pharmacy, the drug companies? Like I guess to me, like that made absolutely zero sense to me.
My guess
just coming
is,
from the industry.
My guess is that she knew she was in Ohio. Ohio has been one of those states that was particularly hit hard by the opioid crisis, and coming up with a proposal that is just like, we need one quick. We need one that doesn't, that sounds like it's doing something not well thought out, and drop it in. That would be my guess. But it's Klobuchar. I would be willing to bet that the bump that she gets from this debate will not be measurable in whole numbers.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think between like David Axelrod and Bill Maher, that'll be about it.
I thought what she said.
Or maybe Chris Matthews, too.
Oh my God, Klobuchar, she's so witty with the zingers. It's incredible. Her dad was passed out drunk, and now she wants to do a tax credit. I'm voting for her.
Sorry, and then one other kind of thing with related to Medicare for All and the opioid crisis. Medicare for All actually a new kind of thing that people want to think about it. By having a single insurer, the doctors will be able and the pharmacies will be able to see where, because there's one single insurer, people can't be going doctor shopping and pharmacy shopping because there's one single insurer and everybody's got to go through it. So there's a new argument for Medicare for All that I haven't really heard, and I guess maybe I don't know if it's just a little too wonky, but I think it probably gets a little bit too sort of granular for a broad argument. I wonder how much doctor shopping. I know doctor shopping was part of it, but it wasn't a huge part of the problem. The biggest problem was simply that the drug manufacturers, in some instances, misled doctors. In some instances, doctors were primed to be misled, and the system. The system broke down insofar as the distribution companies, the distributors, they basically, and that's why they're going to get sued and they're going to lose a lot of money. The distributors needed to be more diligent in reporting what they saw was a massive spike. They tried to massage their numbers to say like, oh, what we're seeing here is to be expected, when in fact, no, there shouldn't be significantly more pills than people entering into a county at any given time. But I think you're right about, yes, there will be the sort of like ancillary benefits to having a single payer system. You'll be able to track this stuff a little bit better. But appreciate the call. Thanks, Lewis. All right. Mm-hmm.
Philip in St. Louis, I should say. I'll just call him Lewis. Let's go here. This is an Ohio number. 330. Calling from a 330. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Nick from Canton, Ohio.
Bingo. Hello, Nick. What's on your mind?
Well, so I guess one of the questions that I wanted to sort of get out of the way was if you were to have a situation where Sanders were to win the Democratic primary and you were to have an ideal VP pick, I think that probably personally, if you were to choose from the crowd of people, that probably Warren would be the best pick. But I think that, because of the fact that there are very important differences between Warren and Sanders, that it would also be important to consider a larger amount of people in that equation. So who would be the ideal pick for you guys?
Wait, I'm sorry. Could you say the first part of
He
that?
just wants to know who would be our best pick, if our deal Sanders pick for VP, basically. That's all he wants to know.
Oh, best pick for Sanders to pick?
Yeah, who should Sanders pick as VP?
I think there needs to be a woman on the ticket and a person of color on the ticket. And, you know, regardless of who is the president, those, I think.
But can you be a little bit more honest, though? Because, I mean, you say something different off air.
What are you talking about?
I just want you to be transparent.
About what?
You've said that Bernie should pick you for a reinforcing Jew ticket.
Well, I mean, I think like my first choice, of course, would be me.
I get we're both combative.
The plan
we
would
both
be,
have a commitment to Social Security. It's like Gore and Clinton.
The plan would be, I get nominated to be VP. I step down before the election because I say I can best help Bernie by running against Chuck Schumer in the primary. But
That's the Machiavellian play right there.
I need the crane to get out of mired out of like you know, I need to get some national name recognition, and the way I would do it would be yes. But after I step down.
Can I ask Michael a quick thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
super quick.
I wanted to ask about Afghanistan. So I recently listened to a Chicago Global Affairs podcast where essentially the situation in Afghanistan has gotten so bad that the ethnic Tajik and Uzbek population in Afghanistan has started to turn in favor of the Taliban. So under a Sanders administration, what would be the ideal policy to try and make sure that we're able to promote democracy, but also ensure that we're doing it in a better way?
You got to get out of Afghanistan. You have to. I mean, it's.
We have
it
no
might
way
not
of,
be. I mean,
if we haven't done it after 20 years,
I mean,
we ain't going to do it.
Yeah, this is not. I mean, and this is the problem with some of even the best thinking that can come out of these think tanks, though, is that there still is an incentive structure to keep engaging. And I'm not. I mean, I don't know all of the specifics. Maybe there's some small, economic development work or whatever, but they need to make an agreement and get out there. And incidentally, even when you're talking about, these other problems, our civilian casualty rate has increased in the last couple of years. We don't even talk about this. We just took out 17 peanut farmers. They got to get out, and it threatens Pakistan too, and India's there, and that's actually another point of tension in that whole triangle. They need to get out and stop looking for reasons to stay in.
Well, you know what the reasons to stay in is? It's good money after bad.
It's good money after bad.
That's
well,
basically
what's your favorite phrase? It's a self-licking ice cream cone. The arms contractors make it. The Pentagon gets budgets. The Pakistanis get it. Different parts of the Afghans get it. It's a money system, and it needs to stop. They need to get out, get out, get out.
Appreciate the call. Let's see. We got time for a couple more calls. Let's play the Ilhan Omar Bernie Sanders endorsement video, and then we will allow John King to critique it. Here it is.
I am so proud to endorse Senator Bernie Sanders for president. Senator Bernie Sanders is the only candidate that has built a movement and continues to build a movement that transcends gender, ethnicity, religion, and we know that in order to take on Trump, we're going to need a unifier, someone who understands what the fight looks like, and someone who is ready to defeat him. I'm one of the people that was inspired by the movement that the senator has built. There was an America that I dreamed about. There's an America that most people believe in. It is an ideal. It's not reality yet. And he started the work of organizing for that America. And that has inspired me to get involved and run myself to help others also organize for that America. One of the amazing things I think about the senator is that he understands we have to find solutions to our greatest problems. We don't wait for what the poll numbers are on proposing a particular solution. The senator is the only candidate that is proposing a complete cancellation of student debt. The senator is the only candidate that is proposing to provide universal school meals. The senator is the only candidate that wants to make sure that we end our endless wars and will fight for human rights and hold everyone accountable regardless of whether they are an ally or a foe. The senator is someone who understands that our movement isn't just for few, it's for everyone. The senator is the only candidate that isn't about leaning a particular way, but being true to yourself and fighting for what you believe, regardless of what the obstacles are. This is not just the fight for our lives, this is the fight for our democracy. This is the fight for a better future, one that we can all be proud of.
She mentioned it in that ad, but I had mentioned at the top of the show that she has introduced a legislation to provide free school lunches universally in the country. Bernie Sanders has introduced that same bill in the Senate. So that's something that they're working together on. But folks, I know what you're thinking. Oh, that's great. But there's some people who see that it could be a liability for Bernie Sanders because, well, let's let John King from CNN tell you why.
The source is that special guest is going to be Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's the freshwoman phenom from that part of the country, that part of New York. She's going to be endorsing Bernie Sanders. And I'm also told sources say that Ilhan Omar and Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Tlaib from Minnesota and Michigan, respectively, also going to be endorsing Bernie Sanders. So even if he's not a headline out of this evening, he has some headlines coming.
It's an extension of what we see tonight, a debate about not only who is going to lead the party, but where is the party going to go? Which part of the party is going to lead the party into the 2020 election? They are more of the younger, fresher face, more aggressive, more liberal, less compromising. Let's talk about working with Republicans. And one of the questions for Bernie Sanders has been in a very different race this time, can he find a lane to victory? There is no doubting his fundraising. There is no doubting the depth of his support across the country. But is it in the teens? Can he get into 20s? How do you win? That will certainly help him. But it will also, I think, Senator Klobuchar is coming in to join us now, have some of the other candidates say, wait a minute. Is this too far left? Is this too uncompromising? Is it too urban? Is it too internet? Does the Democratic Party need to find a broader audience? It is going to stoke the very debate we saw play out on the stage tonight.
Now, I can't tell if he's talking about the endorsement or if he was just talking about somehow Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren's policies are too urban. Now, he comes from Vermont, which is, a pretty rural state. I mean, Burlington is a fairly small city as far as this goes.
Burlington is where KRS-One
But if he's
emerged.
talking about, if he's talking about the endorsement from AOC, yeah, she represents an urban district. Is Ilhan Omar's district particularly urban?
Yeah, Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is.
Ish.
It's downtown
Glib is in
city.
Detroit. But how could a Democratic candidate win without there being an urban? Like, what Democratic candidate has won in modern times without winning urban centers? In fact, that's all that they earn. I mean, have you seen that GIF? Is that what you're digging for? The GIF. I mean, it's a weird twist of phrase, but maybe he wasn't talking about the endorsement. Maybe he was talking about something else. Let's go to John King on Twitter to get him to describe it. Please don't take a snippet and twist my words. I said they are leading new voices in the party, but also part of the debate we saw on stage tonight. Some candidates argue parts of the party are too liberal, too urban. What
does that mean?
Who was...
Literally never heard anybody say that phrase. I've heard... this is so disingenuous, and I'm going to actually defend Pete and
Well,
Amy.
he goes on to say it was a policy point, nothing to do with color. I don't know what the policy point is. What's too urban about the policies of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And people like... Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete are talking about, in fact, you need to appeal to the urban areas of the Midwest as an example. Nobody is saying, including ones that I really hate, the future strategy of the Democratic Party should be. F New York City.
Mayor Pete, the voice of moderation, is a mayor of a city.
Exactly. There you go.
Dems to city, drop dead.
I mean, but this is just incredible because it's like they always reveal themselves in every conversation about Bernie. And I have no doubt, though, that John King, being who he was the person who several years ago was saying, like, Bernie just can't move out of the white rural base. That's a problem in the Democratic Party. So whatever it is, they're always going to lie and minimize about whatever it is that benefits Sanders. It's amazing watching people be surprised that people would endorse somebody who shares their politics. It shows how just childish and stupid so many people are in politics.
I think to a certain extent too, this is the old not getting the youngs, right? Like where this sense of just sort of like, what he thinks is urban energy, whatever that means, is just like young people.
Yo, motherfuckers. This is Ilhan Omar. John King, step aside.
Like the rural-urban divide is something that, you can witness throughout history. And it's always either racialized or like they're worried about the cosmopolitans in the city.
Or Jews.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's always racialized.
Well, it would be one thing if Bernie's policies were extensively focused on only urban centers, but he's also got like a huge plan to help rural hospitals out. He's got all kinds of stuff in there.
He brought up big ag in the thing. I'm sorry. He is describing a debate in the Democratic Party, which has not been there. I mean, it's just has not been there. We know, and I don't care if you look at Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the bottom line is, if Milwaukee has a higher turnout, if Detroit has a higher turnout, if Philadelphia has a higher turnout, it's a different election. I mean, but aside from that, like he's sort of superimposing that urban thing. I will say this: back when I used to do voiceovers, way back in the early '90s, you would get like a voiceover reads like a little more urban. We're going in a more urban direction. And that was their euphemism for saying black.
Yo. Sam Seder here for T-Mobile. Do you want to have a super fresh cat phone?
Yo, what's up?
Oh my God.
Yo.
Yeah, I'm sure you got that direction a lot.
Wait.
By the way,
this is not the GIF. You know which one I'm talking about? There is one where someone took that image of who voted for Trump and it's all red except for a little tiny blue. And then, and then someone wrote like, it's land doesn't vote, people vote. And the map turns into actually a population center. And you see what actually happened there. It's a fascinating map. We'll look for it. We'll show it another time.
By the way, if some Bernie person had said the urban thing about one of Bernie's opponents, like, I don't know, Biden, Kamala, anyone, there would have been such a shit show today on liberal Twitter and across the media.
Well, that's always, there's this case, I don't want to get into it too much, but look, there's a Warren surrogate who absolutely, I don't believe in holding people's past against them if they've evolved, but she's actively terrible about Sanders today. And the stuff they dug up that she had put out on Twitter 11 years ago, if a Bernie
it's bad.
First of all, it's bad. And secondly, if a Sanders person did a 20th of it, it would, MSNBC would bump impeachment coverage. So, we need to fight the double standards.
Let's go to the phones. Calling from a 215 area code. 215. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Sam. How are you?
Wow. Hey, long time no hear from.
I know. I told my husband that I would kind of check out from politics for a while because I was getting nuts.
Okay.
So the
and
only
now
show
you're
I
not.
listened to was,
Right. Now you're not nuts.
No, I'm nuts.
Okay.
But I only listen to your show, and
Boom.
I sometimes listen.
Boom. Good.
Yeah, I only listen to your show, so I'm basically getting my news from your show. That's it. And your 5-minute quickie or whatever.
Okay.
That's where I'm getting it. But
Perfect.
my husband went to walk the dog, so I put on the debate for 5 minutes last night.
Yeah.
So I put on the debate, and the first thing I hear was Joe Biden saying, "We have to reach out to the Republic. We have to reach across the aisle." And that was it. I turned it off, and now I don't know what's going on. So
There you
pretty
go.
much out of it.
Well, that's yeah.
That's basically it. But I just want you to know I cannot stomach Biden, cannot stand him. And I'm torn between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren. That's where I was last year. So
Well,
that's where I'm at. And
if you're
then
in
this
Pennsylvania,
morning now,
you
aren't
have some
they-
time to make a decision.
What, in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Pennsylvania seems to, I have to be honest with you. I'm going around to, where I live, it's very red here, but the women are coming around. The suburban women are definitely not happy with him. So they definitely seem like, even the real conservative women seem to be like really pissed.
Interesting.
So,
Well, the
yeah, they
tax,
are. They're real,
tax
they're,
breaks are wearing off, I guess.
Well, I think that his vulgarity and the kids, the not. I think, to be honest with you, I really think it's the no toothpaste and the no the stuff at the border with the kids with the no toothpaste, and like the mothers think, well, then the teeth are rotting, and like from a mother's point of view,
Right.
Like, and the acne from the no soap and all that, like all those problems and the head lice, all the things that mothers dread. So I think that's really upsetting them, and his vulgarity is upsetting them. And the Syria thing, like I didn't talk to anybody about the Syria thing, but I know that's going to push him over. So the conservative women around here, and there's a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them. They seem to be like definitely souring on him. They definitely like Biden, but they're souring on Trump, which I think is a positive thing. And I'll keep you up to date. I'm only listening to your show, and basically that's it. I lost like thousands of Twitter followers
Oh,
because
well,
I stopped tweeting some.
well, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Twitter
Yeah, I
followers
know.
come
I
and
lost
go.
I still have 87,000, but I lost like thousands. I mean, just every day, like 500 followers would go. So they are not loyal on Twitter.
Oh yeah, no, they're not.
But I love you
know,
guys.
listen, Mindy, this is what I would suggest. I would just start saying to these women, just sort of like, I wouldn't blame you if you just stayed home. I mean, if I was you, I wouldn't even vote. I would be so disgusted. I wouldn't vote. Because if they don't go out, because you know what, if they don't go out and vote, they're not just taking away votes from Trump, they're taking votes away down ballot too. So you,
Well, we have a really good chance of flipping our Congress seat from what's his name, Fitzpatrick.
That's what I'm saying, Mindy. I'm saying you tell those women who are your friends. You say, if I was you, I wouldn't even vote.
They're not my friends. They're not my friends.
Your acquaintances,
Yes, I
the
do
people
talk
you
to
know.
Pretend that
Yes.
they're your friends
That's right.
to lull them into
like
not
that.
voting.
Tell them voting doesn't change anything.
No, but I just wanted to know where I was, that I would definitely hate Biden. I love Warren, and I don't love Warren, but I like Warren, I like Bernie, and that's it.
This is what I would say.
Come
I would
on,
say
you
to them,
mishbucker.
I would say, don't fall for the old lesser of two evils thing. Just don't vote. That's what I would tell them.
No, they really do hate him.
Good.
They really, I mean, they stopped playing. They used to play the news like it, where I get a pedicure, and they stopped playing Fox and there.
Ooh, that's
wow.
a bad sign.
This is my world.
I'm not even in the pedicure salon anymore. That's a very bad deal.
Someone told Brian kill me, but I don't at the nail salon.
Someone told Brian kill me that they won't even play me at the nail
You're
salon.
make fun of me.
Your nail salon sucks. No,
Mindy, thank you for the call. It was great to hear from you.
Miss you.
Bye.
Miss you, Mindy. Bye.
Also, this reminds me, I want to just blow the shofar for David, and I hope that he will recover quickly. Just listener Susan, there's a shofar. We got time for a couple more calls, folks. Can't promise too much here. We got a lot of people have hung on for over an hour. Calling from a 216 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, yes, is this me?
Yes, it is. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, this is, I'm going to go by Daddy Issues originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but I live in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
I like your name.
I come from like a real conservative family from Cuyahoga County. Like I was raised in Catholic school. But I've like always been a leftist my whole life before I even knew like what being left was. Like until I went to college and kind of got educated on things. But I'm just calling today because I went to a rally for Bernie yesterday at the Dem debate. So
Cool.
I was out there giving him visibility, and just a little bit about that. I saw there was a lot of people for Yang there yesterday, a lot of people for Warren, but I was a little surprised at the turnout for Bernie. Honestly, there was not as many as I thought I would see, so was a little disappointed in that.
What was it relative to the other crowds there?
What? I'm sorry, what?
How big was the turnout relative to other crowds?
So honestly, there was a lot of Trump people that came. They stood in front of Pete Buttigieg's watch party, which was kind of like, Beto O'Rourke's like watch party, which I thought was kind of like messed up, because they were, that he's trying to take their guns. A lot of them were armed. There was a lot of Trump supporters who came with open weapons.
Nice.
There was, and they actually kind of came and confronted a group of Bernie supporters while I were there. There was a guy with a megaphone saying that if this place turned into immoral socialist country, that they'd have to go through them first, which was kind of scary to say the least.
Yeah.
But it was more, like I said, there was more. The biggest turnouts I saw were for Warren and for Yang. There was probably 3 times as many people there for Yang and 3 times as many people there for Warren. But yeah.
If only there were a candidate who could synthesize Bernie's concern with material needs with Warren's, I got that wrong. Yang's concern for material needs with Warren's abundance of plans. Oh, wait, it's Bernie. There we go.
What about
Nailed it.
MLK? What about MLK, Andrew Yang?
Take $1,000 a month, move to higher terrain.
Oh yeah, they
Move away from the racism. Move away from the racism. Relocate with the UBI.
Yang. They were chanting mass money marijuana. The Yang people.
Oh my God.
They rented, they rented a huge big semi truck that said "Truckers for Yang" that drove around.
Yeah, I love it that you
Why did they have to rent
you
it?
lose a trucking job, and $1,000 a month is going to make up for your lost salary. It's so
patronizing.
I appreciate the
It's a
call.
limited imagination.
Look,
Thanks for the update.
look, automization's
All right,
coming. The jobs are going. We need solutions that put humanity
Keep on
first.
fighting the good fight.
Like a VAT tax on Amazon.
This is just breaking. Negotiators from General Motors and the United Auto Workers Union have reached a tentative deal to end the 31-day strike by almost 50,000 workers. Details have not been released at all. It needs the approval of the wider union leadership and the rank and file members at GM. So who knows? There's no dates for workers to return. This has been the biggest strike at a U.S. business since the GM strike in 2007, but that strike only lasted 3 days. So this has been the longest major strike in the auto industry in more than 20 years. And it's not over. They're saying they have an agreement. We'll see. Strike, and hopefully they came out ahead in this deal. All right, one more clip. Oh, and this is the we don't need to show this. We'll save this for another time, but that is it. It is impressive. Let's play this clip. Here is Donald Trump. Was this yesterday? Or when did he do this? Do we know? This is today, of course. 2 days after the holiday. Here's Donald Trump. I realized I missed an opportunity to basically tell my followers that everything they love about white supremacy is threatened. And so I'm going to go back in time and do this.
We pay tribute to the Italian explorer who led a voyage of discovery to the New World, a gentleman known as Christopher Columbus. And to me, it will always be called Columbus Day. Some people don't like that. I do. We pay tribute to the Italian.
Yes. He will never call it Indigenous Peoples Day. I believe it's now in 4 states that it's officially called Indigenous People Day.
It's happening.
And I would predict that within 10, 15 years, it's going to be in the vast majority
I
of
knew a
states.
lot of guys at Columbus. Connected guys, made guys.
Over my dead body.
Guys who were connected to things. Made guys.
Let's see. Oh.
Good fellas.
Calling from a 469 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is David, Dallas.
David in Dallas. What's on your mind?
Hey, so I've got a ticket to the Trump rally tomorrow, and I could potentially bring a sign and see if I could get myself in a certain place. You know, if you were in that situation, what would you put on that sign?
Well, you know, I don't know if you'll be able to bring in a sign, to be honest with you. I would think about a Kaepernick shirt. So I liked seeing that. That was pretty good. What would I say on... I would say something about the effect of, like, basically, you know, stop kidnapping babies. I mean, if you want the most powerful, the message that's going to resonate the most, and I think, like, with audiences that might be, you know, if you were going to be on a, you know, the news, let's say, because of it, that would be the one that would reach the most people. We just heard Mindy say that, you know, even her conservative friends, non-friends around that area are most concerned about what's going on with kids. And there was just a report that just came out, I think 2 or 3 days ago, that literally there are parents whose kids have been taken from them. Parents do not know where the kids are. The kids are living with foster families in this country. And there does not seem to be a record of where they are or whose kids they were. And I think there are people who will never see their children again. And children who will never see their parents again. Because our government purposely kidnapped these kids. I mean, I mean, that's just a stunning thing to articulate. And to the extent that you get one person to contemplate that, I think it's worthwhile. Good luck, and take some pictures and videotape yourself and have someone else videotape you if you can, and send it to us, okay?
All right, I appreciate your thoughts. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Thanks, David.
There was a guy who went to a Trump rally in a Kaepernick jersey.
Yeah, that's what I just saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
You saw that, right? Where he's like, he's basically doing like the Italian F.
Calling from a 786 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello, 786. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm Jay. I'm calling from Miami Gardens, Florida. I'll be real quick. I appreciate the show, appreciate everything you guys talk about. And the topic I want to bring up, earlier, Michael mentioned something about the labor land commons issues about private property when he's talking about Jeremy Corbyn. I just wanted to inform you guys about a struggle that's happening down here in Miami Gardens, actually, that has a lot to do with private property. I don't know if you guys know, but the Dolphins Stadium is a location that's located right in the middle of a community, 75-80% black. And what they're trying to do in the Dolphin Stadium area, they're trying to bring Formula One racing to the middle of a bedroom community. Like, they're literally houses across the street from the stadium, and they're going to deal with air pollution, dust pollution, noise pollution. It's like 120 decibels coming from those engines. And it's really crazy because you have Stephen Ross, a billionaire, another one of those capitalists really looking for another opportunity to exploit this community. Now, we've been trying to fight back against it, but the Dolphins, Formula One, they've drawn up their deals, and they're trying to push this issue like it's a done deal. So I don't know if you guys can speak on the fact that, private property is something that a lot of capitalists use, a lot of billionaires use in order to make the situation around communities anti-democratic. We don't want to hear. We've had town halls, meetings, arguments, discussions, all kinds of stuff with our commissioner leaders, and they're still waffling on the issue. And I just wanted to bring some national attention to it because it's just another issue of where is democracy going to fall when these billionaires and millionaires are just picking and choosing the shots. I don't know if you guys could speak to that. Even Jamie, because I know she has a lot to talk about capitalism and things of that nature.
Well, we'll look into it. All I can tell you is, keep the pressure on. The longer and more sustained and the greater the pressure, the better chances you have of fighting this and winning. But we'll look into it, and I appreciate the call.
I just look up the general concept of the commons. I mean, this is an example of a commons enclosure, right? I mean, and sports stadiums in general are something to look at. It's incredible, the sports stadium hustle across the country.
It's also a taking. Right? I mean, that's what it means,
basically. It's a theft. It's a theft. It's a silent theft.
You're diminishing the value of your property. I mean, that's, speaking their language. I mean, of course, it should be a decision that is made by the community. But there's, you want to deploy every possible argument you can, ones that are, maybe ideologically consistent, maybe ones that aren't necessarily ideologically consistent. If you want to win this, you got to deploy all the arguments you can. And one of them, it seems to me, would be a taking. Like, for instance, the Kelo case from New London, Connecticut, where property was being taken by the city government to give to Pfizer, so that presumably they could build their tax base. And in this situation, look, the sound diminishes the value of your properties. And there is, it's one thing when they say, we've got to build the airport here. And the flight patterns are going to create sound. It may diminish the value of your property. But we, as a state government or a city government, we need an airport. We need the transportation. There's a state interest in it. There is no state interest in having a different types of, race cars there. There's other things they can use that stadium for that will not create that type of pollution and that air pollution and noise pollution. And it's hard to say the traffic, because the traffic is already a problem with the football games. But it's a taking. It's a taking. And I think that, I mean, do you guys have lawyers? Is there a lawyer representing any type of group that is petitioning the city council?
Yeah, a bunch of groups are getting together to petition the city council. There's MG Families Unite. They're getting together. There's UPAC. There are a bunch of groups down here in Florida that are trying to rally. Basically, every Sunday, every Dolphins home game, they're hosting rallies and protests about this, and we're trying to make that as big as possible. And just to speak to the point you just made, I mean, this is a 75-80% Black community, and this isn't the first time they've tried to do this in Miami. They tried to put the Formula One racing event in Miami downtown, but that's a wealthier area. That's a wider area, to be quite frank, and they threw them out. And they're looking at us, a Black community, they're saying, listen, we can roll over these people.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do everything we can to fight that.
Well, Jay, I would say, I would imagine these groups have a lawyer. I would continue putting on the pressure. I would look back on any type of news reports you got from that fight, find out what arguments that they used, and deploy those same arguments, because that's going to provide a contrast of basically this is really less about whether there are rational arguments and more about who has less political power in the context of the city, and who's going to be absorbing the costs of this, and it's for people who have to hear it and get sick because of the air pollution, the noise pollution, but appreciate the call.
And whether people own property that's being devalued or not, they certainly have a right to clean air. They have a right to a noise-free environment. Like the environment is a commons. We've been talking about the commons.
Yeah.
And that includes the air. That includes the land. It includes the right to, be able to put your kids to bed at night and not have a ton of noise. And this is an issue all over the place with companies just dumping toxic waste into the environment and taking from the commons in places where people have less political power. And the answer to that is it's not going to be easy, but you're doing it already. It's solidarity. It's rising up. It's using all the tools in your toolbox. And yeah, eventually, I think we do need to take the property away from the people who are abusing you.
Appreciate the call, Jay. Good luck. Keep us updated.
Thanks.
Bye.
Will do.
All right, folks. We've run out of time. We'll be back tomorrow, and then we'll be back the day after that, and then the day after that. Well, no, that is the weekend. Skip 2 days, then the day after that, then the day after that, then the day after that, then you know what I mean. You know where we're going with this. Next week, I will be heading to Las Vegas. Weird schedule next week. The conference is landing on a different day. It's my biannual trip. Have I said that correctly? Biannual is twice a year, not biennial. Biannual trip to Las Vegas for the Mass Torts Conference. I suspect we may hear a bunch about opioids, although my understanding is that there's a couple of judges don't want too much to be talked about in the media. We'll see. Noticed like a slowdown in the amount of stories that we've been reading about this until there's actually a resolution to some of these cases, but we'll be hearing about some other stuff. Quite possibly we'll do some a news day too when I'm there. We'll just have to wait and see what's happening. But until then, sorry if you were holding on the lines for a long time. Just ran out of time today. One of those days. See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my